What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and today we're going to zoom in on one player that I think is the cheapest league-winning running back in 2023 fantasy football. If somebody came into the basement right now, put a gun to my head and was like, Ron, who's going to be this year's Josh Jacobs? I'd look directly into the barrel, and I would tell him this name. I think that he is going to be this year's Josh Jacobs, a guy who could go after the top 5 rounds and absolutely crush. I'll say the name on the other side of the intro. As always, if you enjoy, make sure down below, subscribe, leave a like. Let's go.
Stones, like this froze, ice cold, ice around my body like I'm frozen. She gon' let me.
Now today, the man of the hour is DeAndre Swift. We are back in again. He is my 702 is my RB23, but he is going on Underdog Fantasy as the 801 is the RB29. So we're about 6 running back spots higher and a full round higher. And if you want to draft him at these cheap prices, make sure you check out Underdog Fantasy. They have the sharpest ADP in the game outside of their DeAndre Swift price, to be honest with you. But their ADP is super sharp. Every single draft has money on the line. Everyone's 18 plus. It's not like your home league platforms where it's preloaded rankings and people auto drafted the first round and it's just there's so much noise in the data. You can go in here, do some practice drafts, and then take that over to your home league and absolutely crush. So make sure you check it out. Underdog Fantasy, promo code RON will get you a $100 deposit match, up to a $100 deposit match. Link in the description, link in the comment section down below, promo code RON on Underdog Fantasy. Now, with that being said, the important thing to note with DeAndre Swift is receiving upside. Receiving breeds upside at the running back position. If we look at the last 17 20-plus point per game running backs over the last 5 years, 12 of those 17 have had 14 or more receptions per game. 12 of the top 14 had 4 or more receptions per game, and 5 of the top 7 had 5 or more receptions per game. In PPR, receptions are a cheat code, and that's what DeAndre Swift brings. Last year, he was on the bad side of a 60-40 split. He had a 42% snap share, which was outside of the top 40. Even then, he finished RB 15 in points per game, outside the top 40 in snap share, and he finished that high in points per game because he was 12th in receptions among running backs with 48, and he had the 6th highest target share among running backs. He is that guy when it comes to receiving. He was 5th in targets per route run last year. He was 6th in yards per route run. On a per route basis, he is an elite receiving back. Now, the reason I wasn't all over Swift early on in the season is because, 1, I felt that Rashad Penny was a better pure rusher than him, and 2, that this Eagles offense is just a bad fit for a receiving back, right? He gets freed from Detroit. We're all excited, and then he goes to the Eagles, where when we look at the Eagles offense, they pass to the running back position at the league's lowest rate. This is a data dump feature on J.J. Zacharyason's site that's really cool, where he pretty much drops team tendency stuff, statistics over an entire season. And last year, the Eagles were dead last in target share to running backs and total targets to running backs. They were dead last. It was awful for running backs in that receiving game. But as much as this offense isn't made to check down to running backs with a scrambling quarterback, they also didn't have talented running backs in this passing game. Or if we compare DeAndre Swift to the guys that were in this passing game, you have Kenneth Gainwell and Miles Sanders. And when we compare their career receiving stats to DeAndre Swift blows them all out of the water. Yards per route run, 1.53. Miles Sanders was after the top 70 running backs in yards per route run last year, which is why they wouldn't feature him in the passing game. His entire career, 0.88 yards per route run. Over 1 is like pretty good. Over 1.5 is elite like DeAndre Swift. Anything under 1, it's looking real slow. Targets per route run, DeAndre Swift kills both of them. Passer rating when targeting beats both of them. Missed tackles forced per reception. At least Miles Sanders has some wiggle after the catch. Kenneth Gainwell, not so much. Career receiving receptions per game, DeAndre Swift at 3.9 to Miles Sanders 2.2. Kenneth Gainwell's 1.7. So across the board, over his entire career, DeAndre Swift has been a better receiving back than these guys. And that leads me to believe that, yes, we know that, again, in this offense, it's not really made for a receiving back. But we also have to understand that talent breeds volume in the NFL. When we look at things like the Eagles last year, they're a run-first team, and then they bring in A.J. Brown, and now they're a pass-first team. Well, now they can bring in DeAndre Swift, and now they can actually target the running backs because before that, the receiving running backs or the running backs in this passing game weren't as good as DeAndre Swift. We've seen it before with, like, Gronk retires or Gronk leaves the Patriots, and people are like, oh, well, who's going to fill in the Gronk role? Nobody, because Gronk is Gronk. And Lamar Jackson, once Joe Flacco left, it wasn't the same Joe Flacco offense. They then molded it around Lamar Jackson. You sort of fit your scheme to your strengths, and a forward-thinking coach like Nick Sirianni, I think he will do the same here. We actually have a pretty big sample from 2018 to 2020 where he was actually using a receiving back there. He had Nyheim Hines. This is a guy who wasn't even really that crazy outside of his receiving ability, but over that span of 2018 to 2020, 3 years when Sirianni was the play caller or the offensive coordinator for the Colts, Nyheim Hines had the 6th most catches among running backs over that time period. In 2018, he had the 8th most receptions among running backs, and in 2020, Jonathan Taylor's breakout rookie year, Nyheim Hines was 3rd among running backs in receptions, 6th over that entire span, which is pretty crazy. So again, it's not a scheme thing, it's really more of a talent thing. Because when we look at Nyheim Hines and we compare him to your DeAndre Swift, he's much closer to DeAndre Swift than he is Kenneth Gainwell and Miles Sanders. Swift and Hines both around 1.5 yards per out run, both around 25% targets per out run, both around 100 passer rating when targeted. DeAndre Swift more electric after the catch, and both above 3 receptions per game over their entire career. So again, when the talent is there, Sirianni has featured a running back in the passing game, and that's kind of what I see here for Swift, where I think that he is a similar talent to Nyheim Hines in the passing game, and that will earn him a role that wasn't previously there because they didn't have a running back that could do the same things. So that's what's really exciting here, because if DeAndre Swift can carve out any kind of receiving role on this Eagles team and flirt with like 50-plus catches, that's where he crushes. Because again, this is a guy who over his entire career has never finished outside the top 15 running backs in points per game. Again, despite being outside the top 40 in snap share last year, he gets there. If he flirts with 50 receptions in a given season, he's going to give you top 15 production, and I believe that role will be there for him on the Eagles. Now, the exciting part is that I think that there is more meat on the bone, where this is a guy, again, top 15 all 3 of his seasons, but has never finished with over 650 or more rushing yards, and has never finished with over 155 rush attempts. And I do believe that it's on the table that he could set career highs in this rushing offense. Again, they were the number 1 rushing offense in the NFL last year. If DeAndre Swift can take over the Miles Sanders rushing role and then add on top of that 50 receptions, he's going to be an RB1 in fantasy. Now, some of you guys are like, well, Ron, slow your roll. Kenneth Gainwell is there. Like, he's not going to get the Miles Sanders rushing workload. And that's, like, maybe true, right? Like, the reports right now have been that Kenneth Gainwell has been crushing it in camp, right? This guy says Kenneth Gainwell has 31 carries with the first-team offense in training camp. Nobody else has more than 14. The top 3 running backs are Gainwell, Swift, and Boston Scott in some sort of order. So here's the thing. Rashad Penny very clearly like 4th on the depth chart right now, or like 3rd, 4th. And that has caused Kenneth Gainwell to absolutely skyrocket in ADP and in rankings. But DeAndre Swift has stayed the same. And here's how I'm taking it. I think that Kenneth Gainwell has been the preferred back this entire time because he has the most rapport with Jalen Hurts. He has the most experience in this offense. And they're working DeAndre Swift along. If this backfield comes down to DeAndre Swift versus Kenneth Gainwell to take over the Miles Sanders role of being the main back between the 20s, between the tackle, I'm betting on DeAndre Swift every single time. Like, my biggest concern was Rashad Penny, but if Rashad Penny's falling out of favor and he's like on the roster bubble and he's not really someone for us to be concerned about, then I don't really see the concern with Kenneth Gainwell, because Kenneth Gainwell to me doesn't profile as a pure rusher. That's not who he was in college. That's not who he's ever been. DeAndre Swift and Kenneth Gainwell, when we compare their stats as rushers in 2020 or 2022, Kenneth Gainwell, 5'8", 201. DeAndre Swift has 11 pounds on him. He's thicker. He has over a yard of yards per carry in 2022, and that was Kenneth Gainwell being behind the league's best offensive line. Rushing yards over expected per attempt. DeAndre Swift, positive rushing yards over expected. Kenneth Gainwell, minus. Breakaway run percentage. Another fun fact, Kenneth Gainwell has never had a rush over 20 yards in his entire NFL career. He is not explosive, he is not a big play guy, and he's not efficient between the tackles really at all. Explosive run rate, they're both similar, so that's rate of runs over 10 yards, but it's weird. Kenneth Gainwell gets like stopped after that 10-yard mark because, again, he's never gone over 20 yards in a single carry in the NFL. PFF rush grade, Swift blew him out of the water. Missed tackles forced per attempt, blew him out of the water. Better yards after contact per attempt. Again, DeAndre Swift isn't the greatest pure rusher of all time, but if this is truly a battle between Gainwell and Swift, 4 carries, I am betting on Swift every time. He is the bigger back. He has been more efficient. Rushing yards over expected, cumulative over his entire career has been like steady around average, whereas Kenneth Gainwell, not great. Again, Rashad Penny, crazy high up. But if he's somehow like not going to be featured and not going to be the main rusher between the tackles, and it's going to be one of Swift or Gainwell, I'm betting on it to be Swift every single time. This is a guy that has all the past upside that we want here, DeAndre Swift, where he is a receiving back. He has pass catching. He is young. He's only in his 4th season, which again, I think Josh Jacobs last year was going into his 4th season. He's also behind the #1 ranked established to run offensive line. He's on a good offense that had the most rushing touchdowns last year. He's in an ambiguous backfield. You want these like weird crowded backfields. That breeds upside. Situations like this are how league winners are made. If DeAndre Swift can again absorb a lot of that Miles Sanders role and then add like 50 receptions on top of that, it's all over. Like DeAndre Swift will be that guy in 2023, and it's gotten to a point now where anytime he's in the 7th round and I need an RB2 in like a hero RB build or a RB1 in a 0 RB build, it is an auto pick, and I am grabbing DeAndre Swift every single time. This is a guy you want to roster. It makes too much sense here. I love the ambiguity. I love what his role could be in this offense. I am very bullish on DeAndre Swift. So that is who I believe is the cheapest league-winning running back. Again, I mean, you can make a case for like your Jalen Warrens and your Dart throws, but I mean a guy you can start in week 1 that could truly win leagues from day 1 with no injuries in that backfield. Now, again, I did say anytime he's in the 7th round, I love to take him. We have that in the rankings where I have my target round for every single player in my top 200. So if you have a home league draft coming up, make sure you check out patreon.com/Ron Stewart. The link will be in the description. Comment section down below. It'll take you there. It'll get you to my top 200 rankings. On there, I have my target rounds for each player. So again, 7th round, auto-picking Swift. It just has pretty much the round at which I'm fine taking every single player. The round that I'm targeting each player. You have my targets and my fades all outlined there. You have my tiers as well. It's the perfect draft guide for anybody out there that has a home league draft coming up. I use it in all my high-stakes leagues, all of my home leagues. Any league I'm drafting in, I'm taking that sheet with me. Like, it's pretty much like I eat at my own restaurant. I think that's the saying, but I use the rankings myself. So make sure you check them out, patreon.com/Ron Stewart. But if not, you can help out supporting the channel by leaving a like, subscribing, commenting, all of that good stuff. As always, I love you guys, and I will see y'all in the next one.
Stones, like this froze, ice cold.